All right, guys, we've got some new gear today, some almost new gear, and we've got this Nacet. This is not the Nacet of lore. This is one I use to test razors because it's not really a fair test to put a 366 use Nacet in a razor and say, well, I guess this is not a good match with Nacet. So this is my test one. As you can see, it doesn't have too many uses on it. We're going to throw that into something that's kind of new, the Charcoal Goods Everyday. I got this brass handle from West Coast Shaving, and I'm trying to find a brass Charcoal Goods handle that is the kind of the medium length they have. They have those shorter ones, and then that torpedo handle they've got is longer, and I want something in between. And so this is my stopgap handle. I like the razor head a lot in terms of its performance, and so we will put the. I have not tried it with an Nacet yet, so we're going to do that. And then the very new things: Declaration Grooming Hindsight, and then Stirling High Mountain White Badger. And I haven't even put this in water yet because I wanted to show you kind of what. I mean, it is just soft. It is crazy soft. I don't think it's been used too much. The guy who sent it to me cleaned it before he sent it, and so it arrived to me kind of damp. And usually that's not a good idea. If he would have asked me, I would have said don't clean it. But and that way we don't have any chance of mildew or mold in the transition. Because what if that package could have gotten lost or delayed in the mail with moisture in the knot for a week? That could really be a bad thing. But when I got it, the moisture had caused it to bloom so much. These side bristles were almost perpendicular to the handle itself. It just such a big old bulb knot, and it's got a lot of splay. It's got a lot of loft here, and so I'm gonna have fun trying it out. It's a 26 millimeter. It does, condense, into something like that. And it looks like they've really stuffed a lot into the knot here. Now, the handle, I was very interested in trying this out. This is a similar shape you get with other handles, and so we know it's a proven shape. It's a little bit bigger than those other handles like Maggard has, and they got them from probably the same place that AliExpress and Yaki gets them. But they're a little bit smaller than this. This one's a little bigger, and so I think I'm gonna like it better. I also like the coloring. I almost never go with butterscotch, but what I like about this coloring, this type of butterscotch, is it's not matte. It's a gloss. It's also got a little bit of translucence to it, and so I think that adds some interest to it instead of having it be so opaque. And so there we go. Looking forward to trying that out. Now we'll get him nice and wet. We'll see how, with such a long throw, sometimes that just feels like the right word to use, but of course what I mean is loft. Look, see when I get it wet? The tips aren't really clumping. I think that's just a natural kind of water response to water there. So let's submerge, and as always, I submerge just the bristles. And I advise you and everybody in the shaving universe not to use hot water. We're thinking about the glue knot. We're thinking about the adhesion of the bristles into the glue ball. We're also thinking about the adhesion of the glue ball into the socket, into the handle itself. And all of those things can be adversely affected by hot water, with temperature changes, things like that. And so if you want to soak it in not cold water, then just use warm water. Don't use hot water, is my advice to you. I like just lukewarm water. That's what I go with. Also, if you've got a wooden handle, I don't like to soak those all the way in water. Some people fill their sink up with water for their shave, which is fine, of course, but they just throw the brush in there. And if you've got a wooden handled brush, also if that's hot water, then that could be bad even for a non-wooden handled brush, but especially with a wooden handled brush, then that's going to cause some swelling. And so that swelling could break the adhesion between the root ball and the handle. And I've definitely seen knots come out of wooden handled brushes like some oak brushes because of that. Let us take the Nacet out of the packaging. It'll be interesting. It's always interesting to use a blade that's young and fresh. But it's been a while since I've used my old Nacet. I've kind of forgot about it. I've been using that Israeli red for so long now. This is the only negative thing I don't like about the negative thing I don't like. The only thing I don't like about is this kind of lackluster work on the bottom here of the base plate. And before I clamp it down all the way, I want to make sure that the posts that are on the base plate are coming up and hitting the blade in the right spot, and everything squeezes together in the right way, the way they have done it. And here's also something interesting with this design. The head part that touches the blade over here and the part that the base plate touches the blade, they don't have a lot of contact. Like the base plate has flat, and then it's got two bevels, and then it cuts away to have the drainage areas. If we're looking at a cross-cut view, cross section. And so those two bevels that I was talking about, those two bevels are actually at a different angle than the bevel that's, now we're looking at the top cap. The top of it is rounded. And then it's got a bevel. Matter of fact, what's better to illustrate than actually, let's take apart the razor and show you directly. And that'll mean the world. Here is the base plate. And so we've got the flat area that has the posts that align the blade. Then just off that flat area, we've got 3 millimeters maybe of another plane, another flat area that's at an angle, and that's on both sides, of course. And that is for the blade to get aligned properly on. Now, that's what I'm talking about. That flat plane, that bevel right there, corresponds to another bevel over here on the top cap. Obviously, the top cap is rounded on top, but then it's flat in the center part, and that's for probably ease of production. It's much easier to grind away flatness than to keep it curved in here. But the way they curve the blade is they put these two bevels over here on the side. And the thing is, when these are attached, I don't know if the resolution of the video is good enough for you to see, they are not at the same beveled angle, and I find that very curious. The bevel on the base plate is flatter. The bevel here on the top cap is a little bit more angled. And so they do touch, and they touch right near the edge. And so instead of something like the Wolfman or the Game Changers or just about every other razor I've seen, instead of the two bevels, the blade would go in between my two hands. So instead of the bevels, and I wish I could twist over like that more easily, but instead of the two bevels being parallel, they're actually kind of like this. And so they only touch over here on the end. Now, does that matter? I think it only matters if it affects the shave, right? In general, reassemble the razor. As long as it holds the blade in the right position, I don't really care that it doesn't match. They might have done that on purpose so that they could use different bevels. But I think what that means, it makes the bow very interesting. It's just, it almost seems like there's not as much precision, that the blade could possibly bow at different points inside the razor there. And so maybe if you wanted to try fiddling with it, you might be able to put some washers on one side of the blade to make it bow a little bit more, or put them on the top of the blade to make it bow a little bit less. And then you would change the tiny angle at which the blade comes out the side. I don't know if it's worth playing about that. I think typically you're going to get the same angle every time, because the blade is going to probably bow in the same way. And most of the time I think the peak of the blade is going to come up to the bottom of this top cap anyway. I think it's probably their design. They may have had that be on purpose so that they could change the base plate in the future. It could be compatible with more base plates or something like that. Maybe this top cap has the same bottom dimensions and arrangements as one of their other versions of the top cap, and so it was much more cost effective to reuse the same die for the bottom part. Obviously this part is different with the treatment there. Anyway, enough of that talk. I didn't do it on purpose, but it did serve to give time for the brush to get wet. Now the Hindsight, we can talk about that a little bit, is a creation referring to the year of 2020 that was just so crazy and complex for so many of us. In fact, this here is actually masking tape, and it seems to have Hindsight written in Sharpie. And the same thing is on the side of the container. And so he's definitely making a point about this soap, this scent. I bought it straight from the site. I heard that Hindsight was coming out, and it had a very interesting description that I did not hold back from. And we'll talk about that as we load up Milksteak. Milksteak should be about 30 seconds, I think. With this brush, we don't know, because this is we don't really know what's going on with this. With the soft tips, we know there are going to be lots of tips, but we don't know sometimes how these soft tip brushes will pick up the lather. Okay, when it's mostly saturated with water, it kind of looks like that. I'm going to shake out a lot of that water, and I do that just to be able to more accurately measure the amount of water I do have to add. When you are working yourself, if you want to leave more water in the brush and come to your soaps that way, sometimes that's a nice shortcut method. All right, so let's do 30 seconds. Look how big that knot is. It translates. Sometimes a 26 millimeter can be kind of small looking. Sometimes a 26 can seem like about half this size. Brushes are just different. Okay, 30 seconds, starting at 21, so we'll go to 51. Sometimes these high mountain white knots can, to me, all the ones I've tried have been wonderfully soft. Soft enough where I was very, very happy with that. But I have one that, it's the one from Umo. It's like the flop causes it. It's not floppy, too floppy. But it's like the easy splay is so easy that it leans over too much, and I'm actually using the sides. I'm experiencing and feeling the sides of the bristles in some cases instead of the tips. That's the only fault I've found with them so far. Let me get my face wet before we start working on our lather. Normal 24-hour growth today, so that's good. We tilt down to see the lather a little bit better. I'm thinking I'm going to jump back in and load some more. Let's do another 15 seconds. Just to make sure. And it looks like I'm getting plenty now. Just to make sure we've got enough. sometimes with these softer brushes, they just need a little bit more load time. Usually I find that it's just 5 or 10 more seconds than usual. Okay, this is starting to look more. It's possible that the 30 seconds would have been fine, but you know what? I'm just erring on the side of caution. Now, do you need to use a syringe? I have lots of people on my channel that enjoy my kind of scientific approach to lather building, and you're the kind of person that might just enjoy a syringe. In terms of being able to I think it's important to note that in general you're not trying to only put a certain amount of water in, unless you're doing some kind of experiment. I use a syringe not to do that. I use a syringe to track how much water I'm using so that I can report it to you. Also, so I can make a note so that next time I use the same brush and soap combo, then I can take a look at the water I used and I can know how quickly to add next time, when to think about stopping, that sort of thing. 2 teaspoons in now. If you are not one of those people that like to track that sort of thing, then I advise to just, add water gradually. Sometimes you can get a trickle going with if you're a bowl lather like me, trickle going with your faucet there. Mix for a little bit, then dip the bowl down in, let a little bit of water come in, then mix for a little bit. I actually like that method a lot if I wasn't and that's probably what I would do if I wasn't tracking my water usage. You can, of course, just come at it with just a really wet brush. Oh, look, we gotta see this. This brush, I mentioned this in one of my recent videos where I was really glad that I had such a big bowl. When I have smaller brushes, this bowl feels too large, but with a brush like this, I really have to have a bowl that's this big. In matter of fact, this bowl has never felt small until I put this brush in it right now. It's just such a big bloom. We've got 2 teaspoons now in the mix. Let's add a third. And while I'm gradually mixing this in, let's talk about the scent of this Hindsight. It's lightly coming up to my nose right now. It's a nice scent from the tub. In a sense, I wish I would have studied this tub a little bit more from the dry puck stage. Maybe not brought it to you as quickly, because I wanted to try to figure out what was in it. I did read the scent profile when I bought it, but I didn't really memorize it. And so by the time I received the soap, I had forgotten what it was. And I kind of wish I could have kind of trained my nose a little bit and given it a test by just smelling it and trying to figure it out, because it was strange. There was something that was popping into my head when I was smelling the soap. Now look at this awesome lather. We're going to kind of pull it down and then watch the elasticity there. I think for Milksteak, this might be where I like to have it. This knot holds a ton of soap, a ton of lather. I might add another half, because Milksteak can take a good bit of water. So anyway, I wanted to be able to I changed my mind and I looked at the scent notes and kind of wish I hadn't, but to see if I could I wish I would have tested myself to see if I could possibly figure out some of the things that were in it. Because here's what's strange. It's a smoky Cade note that I smelled at first, and that is such an odd combination that my nose is not used to, that it was giving me trouble. It was actually making me think, do I even like this? And then once I read that smokiness is a big characteristic of this soap, then bam, I knew that's exactly what it was. I wish I could have tested myself to find out, could I have figured out that that was a smoke scent? Because it definitely is, but is it just power of suggestion? Or, could I have possibly figured that one out? I hope so. I think maybe I could have. But the Cade was throwing it off, and maybe a couple of other pieces, because I was, it softens up the smoke a little bit. It almost, it's almost like a savory smoke, and not in a meat way. So some of we're looking at maybe 9 or 10 ingredients, 9 or 10 scent notes. Lately, Scott at Declaration has avoided giving us scent notes because often it can lead a person astray. If they see a piece in there and say, "Oh, I don't like Petitgrain," and it's just a supporting role, and or your perception is different, and so sometimes it just causes problems in your own interpretation of what you're reading. And so he in the past, for a while now, he's gone with just a description of his intention of the scent and not actual scent notes. But this one was so complex because on his site for this soap, he said that 2020 was a crazy year. We made it through. It was complex, and so this soap reflects that. And he thinks that this may be his most complex scent ever that he's created. And he says it's not for the faint of heart, and because it's so complex, it could be very divisive. And it's for, if you don't like smoky type scents, then you probably should not get this soap. Because that is going to be, he said that's going to be dominant no matter who you are. However, beyond the smoke, when you're in the lather form, he said, not when you're smelling it as a dry soap, smelling the dry tub, but once you get it in lather form, people are going to be able to pull out different things, he says, and perceive different things. And so let's see what happens. So the scent notes that we see Scott mention are Cade, and that one when I think about the scent, Cade mixed with smoke is the main part of what I get. So that nails it. That hits it right on the head. I have smelled Cade before because L'Occitane has the Cade scent, and that's my experience with that scent. If I pronounced L'Occitane wrong, I'm sorry. Amyris is another note. Teak. I'm a big fan of Teak. Cannabis. Litsea. I don't know what Litsea is. Litsea. I don't know what that is. Salt. Petitgrain. Orchid. A couple of my other big favorites actually have some Orchid. And the Orchid could be sweetening up that smokiness and the Cade a little bit. It could be doing that job. And so that could have changed the way my perceiving was working on the Orchid, on the smokiness. It's also got Cedar and Sandalwood. Man, there's so many good things. Yeah, Cade was an interesting scent. When I tried it for the first time, I don't know that I liked it. I definitely didn't like it right away. I didn't gravitate toward it. I didn't smell it once and go, that's great. It's something that I learned to appreciate, and now I really enjoy it. Yeah, so this is a smoky Cade. We'll just use it and see if we can smell other things. Rinse my face. I have not washed my face, and so this first pass will just have to kind of do that duty. Big old knot. I mean, this is huge. It may be too big for me. This is definitely the biggest 26 millimeter knot I've used. Stirling came out with that. They've had that finest badger brush out, the one for about $35. They've had that out for a while now, and it's a wonderful brush. And then, was it maybe 2019 where they came out with this set of other badger brushes that were more along the $55 price range, and they had a 3-letter like TDR or something, FDR. They had an abbreviation that went with those, but the price is really how I differentiate and know which one I'm looking at on their website. It feels very soft. It's huge. looks like the lather needs some more water. How do I know that? You can do this back and forth. Now on my face, if I get this rich stuff around the borders, that's an early clue that I need more water. If I do swipes like this, and I get these troughs, and I get some splotchiness, it's not really doing it right now, then I know that I might need some more water. Man, I've got just tons of excess here. Let's rake some of that off with my fingers and put it back in the bowl. It's possible if I just keep working it on my face, I wonder if that will change the consistency a little bit. Brush feels really good. Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of the clumpiness in a few of the strokes, but I think I'm just going to go with it. Could add some water. Sometimes when you see that kind of look right there. Yes, look at the layers here. Do you see you can see these ridges, and usually the consistency that I like, you're not going to see those. It's not going to maintain its shape like that. Still got that zit. I'm almost 50 and I've got a zit. How about that? Fortunately, even in my teenage years, I wasn't really plagued with zits too bad. I'd have one every once in a while, but it just wasn't a big deal. Yeah, let's just go for it and see how Milksteak works. I am going to go ahead and finish off and put a half teaspoon more into this bowl here and just kind of homogenize that mixture for the other two passes. And now we've got 4 teaspoons as a total amount of water that we're using for this shave. This brush makes this huge bowl look kind of small. That's hilarious. All right, let's see if we've got Milksteak at a good point. All right. The Everyday from Charcoal Goods. Gillette Nacet with about 4 uses on it already, so it's pretty young. Notice I'm not using the whole long handle for leverage. I'm not gripping that. That's as a matter of fact, sometimes this third finger down here, sometimes I even don't hold that. And so this center area near the middle, the center of weight of the razor is often where I am holding it. Keep that light touch, only pressing in enough to where it keeps the razor on the skin. I do feel it cutting, but I don't really feel the blade edge. That's pretty cool. Nice, comfortable feel. Not something that is going to generate irritation. Little trouble spot, I will take some leftover lather and kind of hit it twice every time. Yeah, the Milksteak feels good. I think this soap base needs to be run a little drier, and so it looks like it's too dry on my face when compared to maybe a Stirling Lather or Fine Accoutrements Classic Puck. I now have to say Fine Accoutrements Classic Puck because they recently stopped production on those, and in Europe they're already selling the new base. It's a Crope and it's made in Italy, so a company like TFS is a likely candidate for the people to create that for them. And that's a pretty good soap base. It's not nearly as good as their classic hard puck soap base in my opinion, but it's a pretty good soap base. All right, let me rinse. This may be a great knot for you face latherers, since it just holds a ton of lather. Just a load of lather. I like its feel. I'm not getting a ropey, wiry feeling. Second pass. Now I'm going to go cross grain. For me, cross grain is sideways like this. If you're new to wet shaving, cross grain can be different for each person because hairs grow differently. There are guys who have hair on their cheeks and it grows sideways. Maybe it grows from kind of in the direction from their mouth back, or maybe it grows kind of from their ear toward their chin. And so a cross grain pass for them may be a vertical type pass. So if you're new, north-south is not always with the grain, that kind of thing, It all depends on which direction your hair is growing. Very comfortable. Matter of fact, I do have that kind of lotioned feel that you get with Milksteak. And I actually got the feeling almost that I had to watch out for my angles because it was being so conservative that I had some strokes where I didn't feel like I was cutting anything. All right, last pass. First impression, this brush, I like it. I like the feel of it. The only problem is it's so big. I almost don't need to move the brush when I go up. I just kind of move up and then there's nowhere to go. It's just so big. So would be great for somebody who does not have a goatee. I've got a big head anyway, so maybe I can pull it off. But yeah, this lather, this is even better than that first pass. The first pass was nice, but this is even better. Now I'll repeat that cross grain. I don't like to go against the grain on my cheeks. I can. That's one place where I can do it, but I get such a nice shave anyway. Why bother? Hear that sound? That's me going in almost, it's got a slight against the grain aspect when I made that first stroke in that area next to my Adam's apple. So that's why that one is still kind of letting me know there's some stubble around. I don't chase the baby butt smooth like some people do. Feel free to do it if you want. But if you're just starting out, I wouldn't set your standards that high if you have difficulty achieving that. Let your skills come up to that level gradually, and I bet you'll be happier. The only problem that I have sometimes with Milksteak, with Scott's soaps, with Declaration soaps, is that maybe he makes them, gears them a little bit for people to not have it irritate their skin, so he backs off on the scent sometimes, the power of the scent, the strength of it. Maybe he's also conditioning it for the people he knows that overload, that use up 3 times as much product as I use per shave. So it's going to have 3 times the scent, I would imagine. A little bit of the woodiness is coming through, but it's actually pretty light, and I got through the whole shave without really thinking too much about it. And in a sense, that's not a good thing. I do have plenty of lather left over for another 2, maybe 3 passes. Possible I didn't need to go back for that extra stuff. Look at the way that let's see, can you see that move? It's sliding off my brush very gradually. It's a good thing. It's the way I like mine. You may like your thicker or thinner. I am picking up maybe the Orchid. Not really the salt. I don't know what Amyris smells like. The Teak, the Cedar, and the Sandalwood may be all gathering together to give me some of those woody notes. It's a really nice. I really like the scent. I'm gonna have to pay more attention to the scent next time I use it, and so that's the only thing I could see is maybe that it's a little bit lightly scented. In hindsight, one could have added more scent. All right, I'm not going to beat that horse too much. Well, there we go. I'm not really smelling it on myself right now when the bowl is away. It could be because I just spent so much time smelling the bowl that I made myself blind to it a little bit. Sometimes I'm curious about that. Leave your bathroom area, wherever you're shaving, go somewhere else. Smell that environment for a few minutes and then come back in and see if you walk into this presence, this area that then now you notice. And I've had that experience before. And that's sometimes what happens. I was thinking about not doing much of a post-shave today in case this scent was so neat and was going to hang around me for quite a bit, but it's not. So, oh, you know what? If you want a bigger jolt of scent, I guess maybe you could purchase the Hindsight aftershave. I kind of wish the soap would do it. I normally don't buy a set because I have a big collection, but it's because I've focused my energies on soaps instead of always having a set of stuff. Sometimes I wish that was different. Most of the time I don't. I've got plenty of aftershave stuff and I just use it. I got a recent purchase that had Darkfall. Oh, Darkfall is such a good scent. I love it. So I'm going to use it today. And I am certain that it is going to be a good follow-up to this scent because the Hindsight was just so light. I don't think it's going to conflict. Darkfall is tremendous. I love the soap. This is my first time trying this scent. We're going to give the alcohol a chance to kind of burn off. Is this non-alcoholic? There's something in there that's, yeah, it does have alcohol. Something in there that was kind of giving me the alcohol scent. All right, I'm going to clean up my gear. This Stirling brush was very enjoyable. And there you go. Look at it. It's just been toweled dryish. Still got some moisture in it that's making it be a little fatter. And you can see how it has opened up more. That is a huge, huge bloom. I really like this knot. It reminds me of my Kent Mlkstk 8 or something like that. The good news is that I felt mainly the tips and they were soft and it splayed easily, of course. It was big. You know, it is just big. But that, I don't think it was too bad. I just had to get used to the fact that it was just going to go everywhere. And it is huge. It's almost like a little bit of a comedy routine to use it. So I'm a big fan of the High Mountain White. It wasn't floppy enough to cause me to only experience like the side of the bristles as they move, as I would change directions and things like that. I got those nice soft tips. So in a sense, it feels to me like many silver tips do that I really enjoy. It's not super high density, and I like that about it. And that's why you can fit so much more lather in this brush than you can some of those finest Badger brushes that other guys and even Stirling put out, because they're so high density that there's less room for lather in there because there's not as much space between the bristles. This is tremendous. I mean, I'm a big fan. The handle went great. My big hands enjoyed it. It's this similar shape is, like I said, exists already in the shaving world, just in a slightly smaller version. And those are great cheap handles to get if you want to build your own brushes. In many cases, you can find them for $8, $10. And they kind of have a shape like this on AliExpress. And on the America side, I think Shave Forge is the one that, has them. Whip Dog has one that's very similar to this called the Luna handle. And big fan. Good experience with that brush. I like the handle. And now I have a butterscotch handled brush. Why not? Why not? I have some Stirlings that are black, so why not have one that's butterscotch? Okay. Oh, the Darkfall. Oh, yeah. It's coming around. It's smokiness, burnt stuff, murkiness, dark. It's a great scent, especially for this time of year. Oh, tremendous. So I will take the soap. I'm going to rinse off the threading here, clean that up so we don't have any binding later when we try to put the cap on. So I did add 15 seconds, so maybe 35 seconds. 40 seconds might be what's needed with this brush and a Mlkstk soap. Other brushes I've had will pull up more soap a little more quickly. But like I said, brushes are different. And so sometimes you just need to increase the time a little bit. So that was a 45-second load. And we used 4 teaspoons of water. I think if I had it to do over again with the same brush and soap, I would do the, if I stuck with the 45 seconds of loading, I would add more water than what we have here, maybe 4.5 teaspoons, maybe 5, because I definitely like the lather a little better. It's really slicker on the second pass and third after I had added some of the water to the bowl. The Darkfall seemed to be a very nice transition away from the Hindsight. It's a more extreme version of Hindsight, and so I think they flowed pretty well into each other. I'm definitely going to try Hindsight again, maybe even tomorrow, to see if I can pay special attention to the scent while I'm using it, and see if I experience it in a better way. All right, well, there we go. My face is happy. Let's check the closeness of the shave. Oh, now that's really good. The Nacet worked really well in this razor. This every day, so often, it gives me a nice shave at a comfortable level, and very happy with that. So the Nacet's a good match, at least for people with my type of skin and lather and technique and all those other variables. All right, very cool, very cool. So I hope this shave has got something in it for you to help you out in some way. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care. Good night.